and welcome to another Cliff's List webinar interview. Tonight, my special guest is Dr. Robert Glover, who has some very interesting ideas about how not to be Mr. Nice Guy, and I think a lot of other interesting things we're going to learn from him tonight. Robert, maybe you can give some introduction about yourself to people who aren't familiar with you, about your history and your experience and all that.
Okay, Cliff. First of all, thanks for the invitation to come on your show. Probably my claim to fame is a book that I've written called No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's been out since about 2003. And I'm a recovering nice guy. I often say the book is autobiographical. I just use other people's stories to tell my own. And basically a nice guy is a man or a woman, but it's written for men, so we'll talk in that context. So a guy who doesn't believe he's just okay as he is, usually because of inaccurate beliefs he internalized about himself as a child or an infant. And because he doesn't believe he's okay just as he is, he believes he has to become what he thinks other people want him to be in order to be loved and liked and get his needs met. And he has to hide whatever it is about him that he thinks gets negative reaction or rejection from people. And this pattern starts in childhood. It's often reinforced by family, by church, by culture, by society. And it affects every area of a man's life. And one of the most profound ways is, of course, in his relationships. And it begins, of course, when he first tries to get in the relationship through his dating practices. If he doesn't believe he's just okay as he is, or that a woman would like him, love him, want to get naked with him, just because she thinks he's pretty cool as he is, he's going to try to become what he thinks women or a particular woman wants him to be, or he's going to hide a lot of things about him that he thinks might get a negative response from the woman that he's interested in. And once that pattern starts, once it starts from the very first meeting with a woman, it tends to never end. And so it's a recipe for disaster, both in terms of dating and in terms of long-term relationship. And I've seen both. I've been a marriage therapist for over 30 years and started teaching men to date in my late 40s after I got divorced about 16, 17 years ago and had to figure out how to do it on my own. So using that, what I call nice guy seduction, trying to be the nice guy, listen to a woman talk about her problems, be different from other men, volunteer to help her do things, hide your sexual agenda. All that nice guy stuff not only doesn't really turn women on or attract them, if you do get a woman, you're going to have to keep doing that throughout the whole history, the whole course of that relationship.
I think that was an interesting sort of description, but I guess I'm kind of under the impression that being a nice guy is not necessarily just thinking that you're not good enough. It's just that you're just behaving too nice, and women are just not attracted to you because there's the blandness about it, I guess, that's coming across to them. And I'm not sort of seeing that all the time, that the nice guy is someone who just doesn't feel he's deserving, although that certainly is a major theme.
Well, and as you say, if you come across bland to a woman, just trying to get her approval, avoid doing anything that might rock the boat, trying to be nice to her, we think that's a great recipe for getting a woman's attention, especially if we've heard them complain about other jerks who treat them bad. But the thing is, the jerks do actually turn the women on, and the passively pleasing nice guy doesn't. So it doesn't matter if that's just his dating approach because he's never learned a more effective one, or if it's because at his core, he doesn't believe he's lovable or a woman would desire him. One of the things a comment I made in the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, is a lot of nice guys think a woman would be lucky to have them, but they don't know why a woman would want them. And that, because it goes down to that core, I'm not good enough, but I do so many nice things for a woman, of course she would be lucky to have me. And women don't necessarily see it that way.
So how do you get a guy to change from where he is to where he should be?
Well, it can be it can be quite a process, and it doesn't have to be necessarily difficult, but it tends to be, especially if at your core, at your emotional makeup, you believe your world paradigm that you're not good enough, there's something wrong with you, you're inherently defective, or you've got to be good, or hide your needs or wants. If that's internalized at a pretty deep emotional level, i.e. you internalize that in childhood, number one, it's really challenging to even see that roadmap and that it's there and that it exists. And so you just keep blindly doing what you've always done, thinking that it's going to work. But it's like trying to follow a map of San Francisco to get around Los Angeles. It's just not going to serve you well. So it really begins with you, with a man understanding, hey, I've got this roadmap. I've got this paradigm that says I'm not good enough. And if I just keep trying harder and try to impress women or please them or make them happy or hide my sexual agenda, then they'll be interested in me. Then they'll want to get naked with me. Then they'll want to be my girlfriend. And so it begins with recognizing that that nice guy roadmap doesn't serve you well. It doesn't take you where you want to go. And then it begins a process of internalizing a more accurate roadmap. And there's no one right way to do that. Therapy can be a way of doing that. 12-step groups, joining some kind of men's program can do it. Getting a coach, probably going to a dating boot camp of some sort can begin to rewire that dynamic that says, wait a minute, I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm going to let a woman see exactly who I am. And if she likes the me that I am and wants to hang out with me, great. If she doesn't want to, great. I'm not going to waste my time. So you can come at this from a lot of different ways. And I found that when it comes to dating and a relationship, it's one of the most powerful ways to actually start challenging these nice guy paradigms, belief systems, and behaviors, because that's where they tend to show up the most. And so that's where it's actually the easiest to go start addressing them.
I find that one of the big problems that I run into with the people that read, a lot of the guys who read my my emails, is that they never really were programmed to be an attractive man. They're very kind of normal guys that just can't figure it out, and no matter what they do, they're just not seen as an attractive option for a woman, and some of them try like crazy and just get nowhere, and they just can't seem to figure out how to get on the right track. And I know that that's probably one of the biggest problems out there. Is there's a lot of guys out there that just weren't programmed correctly or something to that nature. And I was just, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've actually got a lot of thoughts on it because I see it a lot, and I know what you're talking about. And it's actually, one of the things that I see a lot of times when men that don't have a lot of social intuitiveness, they want to connect with women, and women tend to be more socially intuitive than men in general. And a lot of men have never learned those skills. I mean, if you grew up, playing Mario Kart and Dungeons and Dragons and watching Lord of the Rings and, never leaving your house or interacting with people much, it can be a challenge to get out and interact in a real positive way. And that's where I think a lot of these men, what I see is they they're attracted to pickup because they're looking for that
Quick fix.
The quick fix, the magic, the silver bullet, the magic bullet. And they just become what I call geeks with techniques. They still don't have any social skills. They still have a lot of social anxiety. They still don't know how to have a conversation, but they can, go, run some game, do some polls, do some negs, do some magic tricks, whatever. And they still don't have any sense of social confidence inside. And one of the things that I talk about, and one of the reasons you and I want to talk is that I've got a new book coming out called Dating Essentials for Men. And when I started teaching men how to date,
I lost your sound.
Lost my sound. Can't hear me.
Okay, okay, you came back now.
Okay, you got me. All right. Well, as I was saying, in my book that's coming out, Dating Essentials for Men, I say in the book, and when I started teaching men how to date, because I went from being a shitty dater and I learned how. So I thought, well, if you're not good at something and you have to really work at it to learn how, you're usually a better teacher. And so guys started asking me to teach them. And what I quickly found out, that really what I needed to teach men was social skills, that they didn't have social skills and they wanted to leap over that, right? Hey, I don't have social skills, but I want to leap over that and find a quick way to get a woman and get women and get the best women, the hottest women I see, I want to go get them. And so the approach I took in Dating Essentials in my online classes and my workshops was actually using men's interest to have a girlfriend and get laid as a motivator to teach them how to be more social. And that's a lot of what I do in Dating Essentials for Men. I work on self-limiting beliefs. I work on actual social skills. I teach men how to actually get out and have social interactions and being able to read people and develop more of a social and emotional IQ, which that makes them dramatically more attractive to women. And really, what I try to work with men on is what makes you attractive to women. And one of the things that tends to turn women on, there's no one single thing that turns all women on, but one of them is being a confident social animal. And if women see you in a social context and you're confident, you're not anxious, you got good posture, you're at ease, you interact with people comfortably, you interact with lots of people seem to know you, they seem to be interested in you, that really raises, what's called your social proof. All of a sudden, women look at that guy and think, who is that guy? I'd like to get to know who that guy is. And now you've overcome the hardest part of all dating. And that is developing a sense of attractiveness that draws women to you, rather than you having to go and figure out how to get a woman to be interested in you. She's already interested because she's drawn to that person who you are. Now, there's other things that I weave into that, being comfortable in your own skin, taking good care of yourself. I mean, if you take shitty care of yourself, if you don't bathe regularly, you never get to the gym, and you eat a lot of junk food, there's nothing about that that's going to generate competency, mastery, fierceness to women. And so there's, a lot of pieces we work on, but a lot of it really does focus in on a guy's sense of self, his confidence, and his social skills.
Well, how do you, I guess, start with a guy who lacks social skills, and it's really quite a mountain for him to climb from coming from somewhere where you've been sort of living your whole life without those social skills, and now you're going to try and make these changes. What's the best process that you found for that?
Here is the best process I've found. I've got a series of Dating Essentials for Men podcasts that I recorded while I was teaching for about 10 years my Dating Essentials for Men online classes. And they're Q&A podcasts. And I conclude every one of those podcasts with the same admonition. And it's the guys, I'd say, get out of the house, expand your route, linger in public, talk to people everywhere you go, test for interest, and we can come back and talk more about that, and walk through open doors. Because here's what I found about most men who do not date well. Like I said, most are not very social, and either because they're introverted, social anxiety, low sense of self, just never have learned. They've never gotten out what I call the nursery. They just kind of have spent their lives doing what's easy and rather than what's challenging. And what I quickly found when I started teaching men to date is like I've said, most had no real sense of social self. They rarely were around other people, often rarely left their house, and had some real, usually pretty rigid routines where they did the same things over and over and over again. If they had a job, they got up in the morning, went to their job, didn't talk to much of anybody at work, left their job. If they had to stop somewhere to get food or something to eat, they did that, interacted with nobody, returned to their house, turned on the TV or got on the internet or got on a video game or, found some porn or whatever, and then just did that again every day. And then they wonder why they, can't get a woman or don't have a girlfriend or have never had sex. So that is where I really began. So, that admonition, number one, get out of the house. is that I say miracles happen around people, and unless you got a bunch of people in your living room, you're not going to have any miracles. So get out of the house, expand your route, go different places, go places you don't normally go, linger in public. One of the things I did during my single years after my divorce 16, 17 years ago, I started spending the majority of my time in coffee shops. I would take my laptop, go to a coffee shop, do my writing, do my online classes, interact with the people around me. And I started just interacting with people, interacting with strangers, people I didn't know, with absolutely no attachment to outcome, no agenda, not trying to make anything happen. And I learned a process that I've come to call testing for interest. It's a 3-step process that we can talk more about. And I started using that to measure people's perceived interest in having an ongoing interaction with me, both in that moment and perhaps later on, somewhere down the road at some point. And I learned to start doing that well. And then I also learned to walk through the open doors. One thing that I found for a lot of guys that are not used to being social and maybe haven't had a lot of success around dating or sex or relationship, many of them have had some opportunity or another where a woman maybe was expressing some kind of high interest in them. And the guy just, his self-limiting beliefs got in the way. He just didn't walk through the open door. And then he beats himself up for it for the next 5, 10, 25, 50 years. Oh, if I just had, done that. So a lot of times the problem is not that there's lack of opportunity. There's opportunity, but the guys just don't walk through the door. They're too afraid. They think they're reading it wrong. They're afraid of looking foolish, getting rejected, making a mistake, getting smothered, being boring, not getting an erection, whatever their fear is, they don't walk through the open doors. So what I found is that when guys get out with no agenda, just get out in public, ride public transportation, go to Starbucks, go get in line somewhere, talk to the people around you, and using the 3-step plan of testing for interest, you become a very confident social person. And then if the person standing next to you in line at the coffee shop or at the movie theater or wherever happens to be a woman that you just have started chatting with, like you do everybody, and she's interesting and attractive and seems to be showing high interest, you're confident, you're comfortable, you're relaxed, and which is very different than if you actually never talk to anybody and then you see an attractive woman in Starbucks and you want to try to figure out how to walk across the room and start a conversation with her and not fall flat on your face. So it really does, for me, come down to developing the social skills through practice, repetition, that gives a sense of confidence.
I think a lot of guys will say that there's a distinction between having the social skills and talking to pretty much anyone other than a very attractive woman. Once they go up to someone that they are really attracted to, all of a sudden the nervousness comes into play. Yep. The lack of things come to their mind about what to say. Mm-hmm. They have all of these other issues that sort of pop in that aren't necessarily there when they're just being social with other people. So what do you suggest to guys about that?
Well, here's the thing: is that I'm not a big fan of what I call approach. Approach is basically targeting a woman, usually primarily because of her physical appearance, and it makes her the decider. She's the alpha, you're the beta. You're going to her trying to get her to choose you, to approve of you, and you're going to do it from that place of being really anxious, like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So I'm more of an advocate of, if you're out being social and just interacting with people, I mean, young people, old people, men, women, kids, it doesn't matter. You're just interacting. You develop that sense of social confidence that, here's what I found. Number one, women started, just really, to me, making themselves available to me, really expressing high interest without me having to even do anything. I'm just being socially interactive. But the other thing I started noticing once I've been doing this for a while is that I would just, because I'm so used to talking to anybody and everybody and had no attachment to that outcome, I'm just interacting. And I've got the sun going down on me, so I got glare on my face at times. See if I can move around without so much glare on the video. Um, and what I found is that I'd be talking to people, and I'd get done chatting with somebody, and all of a sudden I noticed that was a young, attractive woman I was just engaged in, and it's kind of like that didn't even activate my nervous system. It didn't like freak me out or make, because I'd been doing this so much and I'd gotten so comfortable in my own skin. I'd worked at letting go of attachment to any outcome. I'm not trying to make anything happen. And then what I found is I was just as comfortable talking to attractive women as I was to, old ladies, old men. It didn't matter. So I get what you're saying. And yes, as soon as we get attached to a specific outcome, I want that woman to be interested in me because I'm interested in her, we are going to get anxious. There is absolutely no way around that. Now, what I have found is that if you've been practicing your social skills a lot, it does make it easier if you're going to approach somebody purely because you find her attractive. But there's no shortcut around practice. There's really not. Most men want shortcuts. We want the quick, easy way. That's why we want to memorize a bunch of lines and then just go run those lines. But even effective pickup takes a lot of practice. So I'll keep bringing it back to that. And here's, I think, the beauty of this approach is that it changes every aspect of your life. If you get comfortable being in public, being a social animal, interacting with people, it starts affecting really every area of your life. It generalizes to your life in so many ways. And in my experience is that I've never had a shortage of women showing high interest in me. Most of them are younger than me. My wife is 22 years younger than me, and she came on to me. And I've had no shortage of women, attractive women, younger women, intelligent women, interesting women, sexual women, showing interest in me without me trying to make that happen, without me trying to approach them to make it happen. They seem to just notice me. And once I notice them noticing me, hey, that's all, the hard work's been done. Now I've just got to, start talking and just be me. And just being you is so many guys say, well, I am me, but and that doesn't seem to work. But one thing I tell guys, most men do not ever really let women see the real them because they're afraid of upsetting the woman or losing her approval. They hold back. They don't say what's on their mind. They're not playful. They're not engaging. They're not physically expressive because they're afraid of doing it wrong. So being you with no censor, no holding back, no worrying about what the woman's response is going to be, makes a man really, really interesting and attractive to the average woman.
I guess that's definitely a good formula to follow. I think a lot of guys are wondering how do they do it for themselves. It sounds good, but how do I do that myself? Turn myself into that kind of guy. And I think that's challenging.
It is challenging. And my entire work, I work with men exclusively. I was a marriage and family therapist for a number of years, had private practice. By the time I quit doing private practice, I was leading 5 men's groups a week. My book's written for men. I have an online university where I mainly teach men. I'm an advocate of men. And men we're at our best when we're challenged. Now, unfortunately, we live in a culture that doesn't really challenge men. We don't have any kind of initiation. We tend to not have mentors. Men have kind of abandoned the young boys. Boys, grow up around their mothers. Preschool, they're around women. Elementary school, they're around women. And they never do get out of the nursery. And challenge is what gets us out of the nursery. And some men don't ever want to leave the nursery. It really is easier just sitting around surfing the internet, watching TV, smoking dope. It's easy. But they're never going to be very happy. And I believe challenge is what makes men happy, is what grows us, is what activates us. So I get that it's challenging to get out and practice being social when it doesn't come easily. Now, I'm a big believer in getting teachers, getting companions, getting support systems. Don't try to figure out and do it by yourself. Most people that learn anything learn from a teacher and get a support system, and they get practices to help them. Most of us don't learn new skills on our own very well, whether it's learning to play guitar or learning how to salsa dance, or learning how to even code, for example. It's helpful to have a teacher to teach you and show you the way. So you're right, it is challenging, and to me, that's the beauty of it. If a man can use his desire to have a girlfriend, to have sex, to have a relationship, if that's motivating enough to get out of his comfort zone, live at his edge, challenge himself, he's going to be a much happier man, a much more productive man, and a much more attractive man.
Well, let me ask you a different question now. One of the things that I think a lot of us face as time goes on is the prospect of being older. And
how old are you, Cliff?
I'm old enough to know better than to answer that question. But I guess the point is that I have a lot of older guys that are feeling that women are just not attracted to them because they are older, and that women draw the line in the sand. Sort of 10 years age difference, and beyond that, they're not there. Now, you've obviously mentioned your wife is 22 years younger than you. You're certainly not an exception. You're not the only exception out there of a man with a big age difference between younger women. But how do you coach guys who have this, I guess, limiting belief about being too old for women?
Well, you named it. It is a self-limiting belief. And if you believe it to be true, it will be. Whatever we believe to be true is what we're going to find and recreate out in the world. I'm not talking magic, like if you believe something to be true, it'll magically appear. But if we have a self-limiting belief, we will find a way to manifest that belief in the world. I actually hold the exact opposite belief. I think getting older can work to a man's advantage. I'm 63. I mean, I'm not young, and women my age, they look really older than me. I take care of myself. I'm not a gym rat, but I take pretty good care of myself. I'm confident in my own skin. I mean, I know how to dress. And here's what I found, and for a long time I couldn't really explain it. But women of all ages have been attracted to me for about the last 15 years. Prior to that, I can't say that was true. But younger women are attracted to me. My wife is Latina, and she always points out women that seem to be vying for my attention, and they're always younger than me. I'm talking about even like teenagers, women in their 20s. And I think I've heard, I can't prove this, but from an evolutionary point of view, there's a social proof that if a man has gotten older and is still in decent shape and still, really competent and masterful in the world, that's a genetic social proof to women that oh, he's got good genes. I want his genes, to pass on to my children. Now, if that's true, I can't say with certainty, but I can't even explain it other than women seem to be attracted to older, confident men. And I think a lot of it is because most women, almost of every age, are bored with men their own age. Most younger men have no fucking clue both how to penetrate the world or how to penetrate a woman. And they're either the passive pleasers or they're the jerks, or, all they're looking for is to get off with a woman. And women get bored of that really quickly. So all I can say is for the men out there that say, well, I'm getting older, and part of that ties into their ego. I want this young, hot woman to boost my ego. And I promise you, if it ties into your ego, you are going to have a hard time getting them. Now, you can do a lot of stuff. You can, get the plastic surgeries, the Botox, really knock yourself out, everything to stay in great shape. But you're going to still keep being paranoid that you're getting too old, and women are going to lose interest, which makes you less interesting to women. And so I think the more comfortable you get in your own skin and don't give a fuck, If you give too many fucks about wanting younger women to like you, you're going to be needy, which makes you unattractive. And the less fuck you give about it, because you got a good life, you're enjoying your life, you'll notice young women all around are sending you signals of interest. And then it's a matter where I find another self-limiting belief. A lot of older men don't walk through those open doors because they're afraid, well, what's everybody going to think of me? Still going to have to move some more to get out of that sun that's coming in my window. That a lot of guys say, well, if I'm with this young woman, guys will think people will think I'm a perv, or women my age will be mad at me. Who gives a fuck? If we're worried that much about what people think, again, that takes away from our inherent attractiveness to women in general. So if men say that, number one, they usually got an ego and insecurity issue, and ego is all about insecurity. It's just the manifestation of insecurity, and it usually ties into their self-limiting beliefs that I can't really have what I want, and then they use that as an excuse. Here's one thing, Cliff, maybe you've seen this, but I've seen it a lot in men. We love our excuses. We've got excuses for this, excuses for that. Well, I don't have a woman because women are this way. Well, I don't have what I want because I'm getting older. Well, I don't have this because I don't have enough money. Men make a lot of fucking excuses, and then it lets us off the hook. And then again, we can go just hang out in the nursery on our computer, smoking our dope, drinking our beer, watching television, and we got excuses. Hey, it's because I've got older. Hey, it's because I don't have enough money. Hey, because I've got ED issues, or hey, because I'm losing my hair. That's all bullshit. And that's why challenging this stuff in ourselves and really living up to our full potential, as I said, not only affects how we are with women, it affects how we are in the world. When I got good with women by just doing it on my own terms, being a social animal, getting comfortable in my own skin, living life my way, my business took off, my income went up. I started having all kinds of adventures, interesting things coming my way. My life just improved dramatically as I practiced the skills and the lifestyle that made me more attractive to women.
I'd like to dive in a little further into that I guess change that you underwent 15 years ago, when you went from, I guess, not being as successful with women as then you became. Can you go into a lot more detail about what went on, what actually changed, what happened that made the difference? Like, what were the aha moments?
Okay, there were a few of them. The biggest thing that changed, I went from being married to being single. That was the biggest thing that changed. But here's the deal. For most of my adolescence and adult life, up until, I don't know, 40s, I didn't think I was attractive. I didn't think women are interested in me. I just didn't think I had that, whatever it was that it took. And looking back on it, part of it was I just wasn't particularly very confident. I didn't have the great social skills. I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs. I kind of dated down and stayed with women I shouldn't have, to just because I didn't have this belief that and I didn't have the skills. I really had no idea how to approach a woman, interact with them, ask for phone number, be confident. I had no idea. Now, the things that led to that change is during my second marriage, I got into therapy, joined a men's group, started working on what I now call my nice guy issues. That's when I wrote my book. And I really shed a lot of that paradigm that says I have to be what other people think I should be. I have to hide certain things about myself. I got more comfortable in my own skin, and I started liking me. And I started facing a lot of fears. So that was a big piece. The facing fears was a really big piece. Now, here's the interesting thing. Even though I didn't think attractive women were attracted to me, my second wife was gorgeous. Everywhere we went, people said, oh, that's your wife? She's gorgeous. Men hit on her. Women hit on her. I don't know where I got all of that. I grew up in a fundamental Christian church. That might have been part of it. I grew up during the angry feminism of the 60s, where women, every man's a rapist and erection's a sign of aggression. My mother trained me to be different from my father. So there's this thing that I just had this belief women didn't like sex and thought you were bad if you wanted to have sex with them. So I'd kind of had cleared that out by the time I got divorced in my late 40s.
How did you clear that out?
Therapy. I did a bunch of therapy, I was in a men's group for a few years with a woman therapist who focused on sexual shame and sexual issues, and she liked men. And so she's very supportive of men being their sexual selves and not hiding that away. So that therapy was effective. And here's actually another aha that sounds kind of odd, but the short story is I was working with a couple. Like I said, I was a marriage and family therapist, and this couple said their teenage son, they were worried about him because they thought he was looking at pornography on the internet. Well, this was several years ago when the internet, was still pretty new. And that's really all you could do on it was look at pornography or steal music on Napster. And so they said, well, you talk to our son. They brought him in. He was probably 16, a little socially awkward, but really bright kid. And I liked him. And so I said, your parents think you're looking at porn on the internet. And he says, yeah, I am. And I said, okay. And so we started talking about it. And I said, what kind of porn do you look at? And he said, well, it's called amateur porn. And I'm pretty naive at that time. I didn't know what amateur porn was. So I said, well, what is that? And he said, well, do you want me to bring some in on, it was probably on a floppy disk at that time. I said, yeah, why don't you do that? And he brought it and I started looking at it. And it's probably now what we would just call selfies on Facebook. But it was women posing, partly undressed in sexually provocative scenes, maybe with their boyfriends, maybe they're horsing around with their girlfriends, taking pictures where they were being overtly sexual and having fun. I mean, this wasn't like professionally made porn. It was just girls, women just being sexual and wanting their picture taken. And there's something about that was one of my ahas. I thought, wait a minute. You mean women like sex and they like being sexual and they're playful about it? And that actually was a really powerful shift for me that kind of cleaned out my self-limiting belief that women did not like sex and thought men who wanted to have sex were bad. Cleaning that belief out made a big difference in how I started interacting with women. And when I did start dating in my late 40s and into my 50s, because I wasn't hung up about hiding, I'm dating this woman because, probably I'm going to find out if we're going to have sex or not. And what I started finding is on first and second dates, women were getting naked without me pushing, without trying to get them to have sex. And I quickly found out you don't have to try to get women to have sex. Once they're interested, they want to have sex. And actually pushing them to have sex tends to work against you. And it just amazed me that, women do like sex. And that was really therapeutic in changing my mindset. So I quit hiding my sexual agenda. I quit playing small. I quit being repressed. And that helped a lot in terms of just making me more attractive to women. So that was a really big piece. Those were some of the big changes. And then I just got out, and when I became single, a lot of dating material was out by that time. The David D'Angelo stuff, Art of Charm was just getting started up. The Game came out not too much after that. And so I just read and listened to a lot of stuff. My clients gave me a lot of stuff, and most of it was garbage. Some of it was good. And one piece I just realized, you just got to get out and practice. And that's where I got out. And probably one of the most revolutionary things that helped me was that what I mentioned before of learning to test for interest and to actually observe how high is a person's interest in having an ongoing interaction. You avoid a lot of social blunders, you become more socially adept, and you don't waste time on people and women that actually have no interest in continuing any kind of interaction with you. So there were a lot of pieces that went into it for me.
Well, I think one of the challenges I think a lot of guys face is that maybe come to the understanding that women do like sex, but doesn't necessarily mean they like sex with them. And that's the bridge that I think is also a challenge for a lot of men.
Well, let's deal with that. And again, that could be purely self-limiting belief. I found that a lot of men have a lot of internalized sexual shame. They're afraid of being sexual creatures. They're afraid of getting negative reactions if a woman thinks that they do want to have sex. Another thing I found with men is a lot of guys have spent the majority of their life masturbating to porn, whether it was daddy's magazine or online porn. And believe it or not, a lot of men don't want to give that up. And it's actually easier. I call it safe sex. And so again, it's the excuses that men use to avoid. And because a lot of men have spent so much time jerking off to porn, they tend to ejaculate quickly. They can't get erections with real women because they're so conditioned to only getting erections to porn, to their fetishes. And so men have actually wired themselves to have a lot of sexual dynamics that work against them. The other piece that I found for guys in terms of getting out of the nursery and making yourself into something that a woman would want to connect with. And this is a piece I deal with in my Dating Essentials for Men book. Men want a certain kind of woman. And unfortunately, too many of us all want the exact same woman. If you got one attractive woman, every guy in the rooms would prefer to be with that woman. Women are a little different in that way. But we want certain things in a woman. And most guys don't want a fat woman. Most guys don't want a lazy woman. Most guys don't want a woman who doesn't take care of herself. Most guys don't want a stupid woman. Most guys don't want a woman that, is never learned how to be feminine and interact in a feminine way. And so we do have certain things we want in a woman. But then we go, well, why come women don't want me? Well, do we have what they want? And I mean, it is a trade. Women are going to get with us because we have something they want. Now, men make the mistake, and this is where we're kind of dumb, but it ties into our excuses. And once we got an excuse, hey, we're off the hook. We can blame our unhappiness on something else. Gold digging women, this, that, the other thing. We think women just want the rich guys, the playboys, the good looking guys, the muscle bound guys. And that's not true. There are things we can do, we maybe call it skill stacking. The more assets we build in our favor, the more attractive we are. But it's not the skills most men think, and it's not the excuses we make. Like, it has very little to do with age. It has very little to do with wealth. And it has a lot more to do with just how you walk the planet. Now, if you've never been to a gym, if you don't ever work up a sweat, if you wear shitty sweatpants and raggedy t-shirts and you got a gut hanging out of your pants and you've never had a decent haircut, no, women aren't going to find that attractive. And the guys go, well, I'm just not attractive. Well, okay, get to the gym, work out, do it for you. But the things you do for you to challenge you and make you a more interesting human being make you more attractive to women. So if a guy says, well, women just aren't attracted to me, in my experience is because either he's like really Aspergery and just has no fucking social clue of how to interact, or he's never fucking looked in a mirror. And I think if you've got some degree of social skill and are willing to practice, and if you're willing to exercise, and if you're willing to get at least halfway fit, and if you're willing to wear decent looking clothes that fit you well, and you're willing to get out of your comfort zone, and if you challenge your self-limiting beliefs around sex, and if you'll quit looking at porn and quit jerking off, I think many men's lives will be transformed and they become more attractive to women.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit more about how you convert the guy who's not social into being more social.
Well, the thing that I go back to that mantra, you know, I'm telling them you're going to have to get out of the house, expand your route, linger in public, talk to people everywhere you go, test for interest. So let's talk about testing for interest. This is what really, really turned my social life and my dating around. And again, my social life, maybe even more than my dating. And I learned to start paying attention. And so, for example, and when I tell guys, have interactions everywhere you go. If you're standing in line somewhere, and, you know, that's where most of it is, standing in line, or you're sitting somewhere and somebody's next to you, or if you're going to go eat, go to the bar, go to the bar in the restaurant, sit in the bar and eat. Talk to the bartender, talk to the people on either side of you. And here's what you do as you're interacting with people. And there's 3 levels of testing for interest. First level is just social pleasantries. You're not trying to make anything happen. You're not trying to pick anybody up. You're not trying to impress anybody. It's just social pleasantries. And it's not rocket science. It's as simple as saying, how's your day going so far? Or what's good here? Or been shopping, if they have shopping bags, obviously. Think the rain's ever going to stop. You know, make a comment about the local sports team. Just anything that's just a social invitation. That's all. It's not rocket science. My go-to one has always been, how's your day going so far? Now, don't just use hi, because there's actually nothing for people to react to. Don't say hi. Don't just say hello. Just say, start with that. How's your day going so far? And then you're going to observe, what is the perceived interest in that person has in having an ongoing interaction with you. Now, again, you're not trying to make anything happen. You're just practicing being social. So if you're standing in line at Starbucks, and let's just say it's a guy, you know, you're going to do this with everybody. Don't wait. And I do it with men more than I do women. So you say, how's your day going so far? And they don't even look up from their phone and either just ignore you or say fine and don't ask you back. All right, that's low interest. All right, you don't try to continue a conversation. You found out what you needed to know. They have low interest in having an interaction with you. But what if, you know, they're looking around, you say, how's your day going so far? And they go, actually, it's been pretty good. You know, got off to a good start. Things are great. How about you? How's your day been? That's high interest. Now, this is level 1. It doesn't mean anything. It's just 2 people having a social pleasantry in line somewhere. And if you start paying attention, this actually goes on everywhere. People that are socially adept do this all the time. People that are not have no clue to do that. Now, what happens, a lot of guys tell me 2 things. Well, I don't want to be that boring person that interrupts people and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, if you're testing for interest, you won't be, because you'll be observing. If they have a low interest in interacting with you, you'll be done, and no harm, no foul. And they'll say, well, I don't like it when people like talk to me. And I go, well, okay, you're going to have to fucking work on that then. Because if you want to be socially isolated, you're probably not going to get a girlfriend. That's just the way it is. So you're going to have to work on that. And you can also learn to set boundaries socially. So level 1 is just social pleasantry. How's your day going so far? Observing their reaction. If it's low interest, wonderful. If it's high interest, wonderful. Now, second level of testing for interest, you don't try to make happen. It organically happens for whatever reason. And we've all had this experience. If we talk to people, we've all had that experience of where you start a conversation with a stranger, just, you know, no big deal. And then all of a sudden you start chatting and you realize you got something in common, a shared interest, maybe something clicks. And again, this could be a guy, it could be a woman, it could be anybody. All of a sudden something clicks and things are kind of having a nice little conversation. And now you're probably still just standing in line at Starbucks, but you just had a little 90-second conversation with a stranger. That's level 2 of testing for interest. You're still observing. How high is their interaction, their desire to continue interacting with you? If it seems high and you want to continue to interact until you're done or they're done. If it's low, you'll probably never get to level 2. Now, that's where most of this ends. Most social interactions end at level 1 or level 2. Social pleasantry, that's it. Maybe level 2. You know, it organically flows until the person orders their drink and says, have a great day, nice to talk to you, bye. And that happens all the time. And that's all practice. Do it, do it, do it, because it's good practice. Now, level 3 is what really changes things. Level 3 is where you actually consciously test how high is this person's interest in having an ongoing interaction with me. Maybe it was a guy you're talking to about your favorite sport, and maybe you really hit it off and say, hey, let's catch a game sometime. Why don't you give me your number? I'll give you a call. We'll go catch a game. And if he says, that'd be fantastic, gives you his phone number, that's high interest. Give him a call, go catch a game. If he says, I'm really going to be busy for the next few weeks, that's low interest. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't have to figure it out. It's low interest. You found out what you need to know. He's not going to go to a ball game with you. Now, if it's a woman, it's the same thing. And getting the phone number is kind of the probably classic, test at level 3. If you're interacting with a woman, it's going well. She seems to have high interest in interacting with you. You're enjoying it. You have high interest. And you think, well, maybe it'd be fun to see her again. Just say that. Hey, I'd love to see you again. Take your phone out, hold it up, say, give me your number. I'll give you a call. We'll make some plans to meet up again. If she, gives you her phone number right there, key it into your phone and dial it right there. Punch it. And then when her phone rings, leave her a message right there in front of her and say, hey, this is Robert, or whatever your name is. Say, I'm standing right in front of you. You got my number now. I'm going to call you back later. We're going to make some plans to meet up again. If you say, hey, give me your number. I want to call you. We'll meet up again. If she says, no, I got a boyfriend, or I'm not dating right now, or I got a lot going on. That's low interest. You found out what you need to know. You don't have to worry about it. You didn't do anything wrong, but I call it getting to rejection quickly. You found out she has low interest. That's better than like leaving the interaction and kicking yourself for the next 6 months thinking, I should have asked her. I should have asked her. All right, just ask her, get it done with, find out if the door's open or not. If it's open, great. Walk through it if you want. If it's not, great, you found out what you need to know. But practice this everywhere with everybody. And then, as I said, when you're practicing this little social formula until it becomes second nature, and then you start noticing you're actually just talking comfortably with women that used to scare the bejeebers out of you. But it does take practice, and you can't wait until you see an attractive woman and go, what was that thing Dr. Glover said about testing for interest? What were the 3 points? Okay, it doesn't work. Get out and practice.
How do you take it to the next level where it starts to get intimate?
You don't have to. It will. Here's what I found. And that's a good question because, like I said, when I started dating, I didn't even know when to ask for a woman's number or how to ask for it. And when I started going on dates, I had no clue. I mean, I hadn't dated since I was in college, and I went to a Christian college, and you weren't supposed to have sex. So that was a kind of an area for me that I wasn't sure about. Here's what I found: if you are a confident social guy, and a woman decides to go on a date with you, she has already decided she's probably going to sleep with you. Right? Women do not go out on dates with men that they've already decided they're not going to sleep with them, unless it's purely because the woman likes men buying her dinner. And there's women that do that. But in my experience, if a woman that you met in a public social way gives you a number, answers your call when you call her, agrees to go out with you, she, in her mind, has already decided if you don't blow it, right, or as Chris Rock says, if you don't say something so stupid that you blow it, she's already decided she's going to sleep with you. And I've found when I started dating is that if you push women to get them to be sexual, and that's probably what the whole Me Too thing is about, is guys pushing women to be sexual. But if you push them and they're not quite ready, even if they are thinking they're going to, but if they're not quite ready and it's obvious you're pushing, they're going to put their foot on the brake. And I found that once a woman has her foot on the brake, it doesn't come off real quickly or real easily. And the more you push, the harder she pushes on the brake. So what if you were doing nothing to push for sex? You're just being you, you're being playful, you're being fun, you're being affectionate, you're setting the tone and leading, you're not holding back in any way. She's having a good time with you. She is already going to be thinking, how am I going to get him naked? Now, I know that probably sounds foreign to a lot of men. It was to me too. And literally, I was women that, would just start taking their clothes off. If we got back to my apartment or to their apartment, usually they all came back to mine. Um, it'd be, or they, would, start wrapping their legs around me and putting their tongue down my throat, or they'd start making sexually suggestive comments to me. And I wondered what planet had I landed on, because I didn't have to try to get them to have sex. And if I actually went a little slow with it, wanting to maybe get to know the woman a little bit, they would actually get impatient and start, letting me know, they were ready to have sex. And this would often be like, if I went to like third or fourth date without getting naked with them, if a woman goes on 3 or 4 dates with you, it's because she wants to have sex with you. So you don't have to get them there. They show up there. In fact, my mantra is they have to show up wet. I'm not going to try to get a woman in the mood to have sex. I tried doing that for 14 years with my second wife. I vowed to never do that again. So if they don't show up wet, if they don't show up with high interest, I'm not going to waste my time on that. I'm not going to work to try to get them interested in sex. And again, that's probably a recipe for disaster any way you look at it anyway. So I know a lot of you guys may not believe this, but if you actually just get out and practice what I'm talking about, of being this kind of social animal and getting comfortable in your own skin and clearing out your sexual self-limiting beliefs, you will be amazed at women that start showing high interest, number one, in being with you, and number two, high interest in getting naked with you.
Well, maybe we can talk to us a little bit about online dating, which is obviously very big these days. What's your take on online dating?
It has pluses and minuses, like everything does. Is not particularly organic by the most part. You mentioned earlier men that say, well, women say, well, they don't want a guy this age. That's really true in online dating, where people make decisions, based on what you put your age as, what you make, a little picture. Oh, I'm going to go out with this guy or this girl because of that little picture. And it's changed some since I did online dating. I did, the Match.com kind of stuff. Things like Tinder and Bumble and Hinge. They didn't exist when I was doing the dating. Guys I know that use it and will learn to use it well tend to like it. It kind of perpetuates kind of a hookup type of situation. But for a lot of guys, that's what they want, is to hook up. So nothing wrong with that. And I think probably, if I was out there in the dating world right now, I would probably, be using Tinder or Bumble. I like the thing that women have to actually make the initiative on that. And so, they can be effective. They will introduce you to a broader pool of available dating partners than you would just meet anywhere else. Once we graduated high school for sure and college, we kind of left the most ideal pool we're ever going to be in for, a lot of single available people who would like to have a boyfriend or girlfriend. And so out in the real world, it's tougher to know who's single. It's tougher to know who's actually interested in dating. And so the online dating can be helpful. It's a lot of fucking work, but most dating is a lot of fucking work. When I was dating quite a bit, I cycled on and off, both with dating and with online dating. When I do online dating, I'd really hit it hard for about 2 or 3 weeks and then take a month or 2 off of it and then kind of come back and redo my pictures and profile and things like that. So I think the thing I like best about online dating is it creates an intention, because a lot of guys say, yeah, I want to date. I want to go out. I want a girlfriend. I want to get laid tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll start. And, they just go watch some more internet or look the internet or watch more TV. Or they go work, whatever. And making a commitment to online dating is at least kind of like, all right, I made a commitment. I've signed up. I've got the profile, the app, the profile, whatever. I'm actually, like playing around with it. And if you get past the just playing around with it and start working it, I like that part of it, that it actually gets you out and doing something rather than doing nothing and wishing that you had a girlfriend.
Okay. Well, let's move along to, I guess, relationships. Clearly, you've been, I guess, married at least twice that I know of, and
I'm on number 3.
number 3. So, what is it about marriage that you keep going back to, and do you recommend that to guys, or what's the perspective on that in terms of being, I guess, the most pinnacle of relationships?
Well, I don't know that it's a pinnacle of anything, and I'm not exactly red pill, but I do understand what that's all about. The message of that. It's interesting that most of the red pill guys I know are all married, and here's I told myself 10 years ago I would never get married again, never live with a woman again, and never raise another man's kids, and I'm doing all 3. And I bottom line, I like being in a relationship. I don't know if marriage is so much that the requirement of it, but I like being in a relationship. Deciding to get married again was based on a number of factors. One, what was in the best interest of the person I was with. What was the best way to handle certain legal things, and I decided to get married. And I here's the deal. I don't believe as humans we're wired for long-term monogamous relationships. It's not in our DNA. For 1.5 million years, we lived in tribes and we were fairly communal, including sex. We didn't pair bond. Pair bonding has existed less than 10,000 years in human history, and romantically pair bonded relationships have been around only less than 200 years. So it's really new to our species to pair bond. And, even when religion kind of crammed it down our throat, one man for one woman for life. And I grew up in a very fundamental religion, so I get all of that. I'm not religious now. One man, one woman for life. Well, if your lifespan was 17 or 27 or 35, if you're 35-year-old, that's not real long. Now, we live a lot longer. And whether we get married or have other kind of long-term monogamous, semi-monogamous relationships, that's up to everybody to figure out what works for them. I don't know that there's any right way to do it. In my experience in my marriages, I found this in every long-term relationship I've been in, is that I got with the woman, of course, because there were things I liked about them, and we enjoyed each other. We clicked. There was positives about it. Otherwise, we wouldn't get with people unless maybe we were just like totally lonely and insecure and just settled because we wanted somebody, which that happens too. So of course I liked things about them, but the thing that I found in every long-term relationship I've been in, I've reached a point, and no matter how conscious I was or how I led or how I communicated a message of where I wanted us to go as a couple, in every case, the women I've been with kind of reached a point where it's like, no, this is as far as I'm going to evolve. Kind of dug in their heels, and nope, I know I'm difficult in this way, but I'm not going to give up my neuroses. And usually then I tend to stay around too long after that. And that's one of the things I found for both successful dating and successful relationships is you got to be a good ender. It doesn't come naturally for me or for most men. So that's a piece I've had to work on, is actually ending things in a timely way. So I think relationship, whether you get married or however you do it, can be a really powerful personal growth machine. And, as both a therapist and as a practitioner of relationship, that's how I try to treat them. I've long ago given up the expectation that I'm going to find lifelong happiness from one individual person. But if they're a decent human being and willing to work at it, I think both people can grow a lot from a monogamous commitment. And I'm all about that. I'm about growing. I like growing. I like challenging myself. So again, I don't have like a belief system. This is what's right. I tend to like being in a relationship, and I tend to get to a point where it's always been time to leave at some point. And maybe that's just how it works, since it's not part of how we're wired. Maybe we just have to accept that getting all the way in probably means at some point you're going to get all the way out. David Snarch, who wrote a book called Passionate Marriage, said that in every relationship, somebody's going to get left. And when I read that, I found that actually very liberating. Now you can quit trying to hold on. Well, I married this person. I got to be married to him all my life. Well, sometimes it's a more loving thing to do for both of you to say, no, it's time not to be married anymore. So I think if you're in it to grow, I think you'll get what you want. If you're in it with some other expectation, you're probably going to be disappointed.
You've commented you don't really believe in long-term monogamy.
No, I don't believe it's natural. I don't think it comes naturally for us. I think we can work at it, but I don't think it comes naturally.
Well, that, I guess, brings up the question, because I did actually notice in some of the material you had sent me that you do talk about dating multiple women.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can elaborate on that subject, which I'm sure a lot of guys are very interested in.
Yeah, I think there's benefits, especially until you find a person that you want to see exclusively. You should date multiple women. Now, that was another one of my self-limiting beliefs I had to challenge, is that I thought, well, all women expected you, to just see them. Even if you weren't having sex yet, if you were dating them, and if you got past the second or third date, they wanted you to be exclusive. Now, where that didn't work for me when I started learning how to date in my 40s is I'd been married for 25 years. And I wasn't looking to just get back into another relationship. I wanted to get out and have a lot of experiences. I wanted to meet a lot of different women. And it wasn't that I, was just wanting to fuck a lot of different women, but I didn't want to get sexually exclusive and limit whatever opportunities were out there. And mainly, I just didn't want to, get right back into another long-term relationship. And so I dated a lot. And as I got successful at it, I sometimes would be, dating 3 or 4 different women at a time. And I don't know, as back before I'd ever heard of the term of spinning plates, but I was just, I wouldn't settle down to one woman until I was ready to really get to know her, at a much more deeper level, and not date anybody else. So, but I had a lot of anxiety about that, because I thought, well, women, they want to get exclusive real fast. And, especially on online dating, they usually say things like that. I'm not looking to date around, sleep around, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. So because I did not want to get right back in another relationship, I didn't get exclusive quickly with women. And, I think every area of the country or world is different of what kind of the custom is. I'm told in New York City that, the custom is men and women don't ask each other, what are we, until like you've been dating 6 months. Now, I've heard that. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure everybody's different. But if a woman asks me, what are we? Where are we going? Are you seeing other people? My standard answer became, until you and I have a conversation that we are exclusive and not dating anybody else, you need to assume that I am. And if they said, well, are you? I would say, you need to assume that I am. Now, I would say that even if I wasn't dating anybody else at that time. Just because, if I wasn't dating anybody else, I didn't want the women to, I don't know if infer or imply is the right word, that, oh, because I'm not seeing anybody else, I'm just seeing them. And they'll say, well, I took my profile down. I go, okay, cool. But until we have a conversation, you need to assume I'm seeing other women. Are you having sex with other women? Well, until we have a conversation about being sexually exclusive, blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, I don't have sex unless I'm in a sexually exclusive relationship. And I'd say, well, I don't get into a sexually exclusive relationship with a woman until I've had sex with her. I'd say, that's actually kind of dumb if you think about it. Why would I get sexually exclusive with somebody I've never had sex with? So I just had to set the tone on that. And I mean, I wasn't an ass. I'd usually be pretty playful about it. And what I actually found is that um, even if women didn't necessarily weren't thrilled with that, a lot of women kept going out with me, and a lot of women kept sleeping with me, even if they wished I was just seeing them or just sleeping with them. If they like you, they're going to tend to keep seeing you. Now, every woman's different for how long that'll go on. And I actually met a number of women, and like I said, I was in my late 40s, early 50s during when I was really getting good at dating. And a lot of women, kind of especially closer to my age bracket, like single moms, they'd tell me, I'm not looking for a relationship. I don't have time, but I haven't been laid in 6 months. Let's just get naked. I go, okay. I mean, why am I going to say no to that? So I actually found that a lot of women were not pushing to be exclusive. And even the ones that preferred it would accept something other than that if they were enjoying my company. So I'd go really slow before I would commit to any one individual. And I would only do it when I thought, this might be a person that I could see myself being with long term. And until I thought that about a woman, I would not commit to them exclusively.
Okay. Well, I think you've shared a lot of good information this evening, and maybe you can tell the listeners a little bit about what they could do to follow up and learn more about what you have. If you have some, tell them about your book, and about if you have coaching, anything that you want to promote to them. Let's hear about it.
Sure. Well, two websites. One is drglover.com that has everything that I do on there. My online classes. I do a very limited amount of consultation. I do workshops and seminars. And the newer website is Dating Essentials for Men. And as we talk, we're talking right now near the end of May in 2019. And in about a week, my new book, Dating Essentials for Men, will be available as an ebook on Amazon. You can pre-order now if you're actually listening close to this date. But yeah, go to Amazon, check out either both No More Mr. Nice Guy and Dating Essentials for Men. And if you just Google No More Mr. Nice Guy or Google Robert Glover, I'll come up in those top spots. So drglover.com, probably the best way. Dating Essentials for Men if you're single and looking for what I have to offer in terms of resources for single men.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for spending this time with me tonight, and I'm sure the guys will get some good tips out of this, and I'm sure there'll be more questions for you coming up, and perhaps we'll even do another interview one of these days again soon.
That'd be fun. I had a good time. I appreciate the invitation, Cliff.
Good. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.